Thank you. Thank you for introducing me. I'm Bronwen. I am CMO at Voylok. We spent the last 10 months launching a Russian brand and the last 3 months pivoting. So this is our story from creation to pivot to purpose. So first of all, what on earth is a Voylok? So it's a modern take on a traditional felt boot called a Valenki. Valenki have been worn across the northeast of Europe for centuries, really just helping people be out in the elements and stay warm. They're still made to this day by hand in workshops in the global north by craftspeople who are paid fairly, treated well. Fun fact, the majority of the year they're actually shepherds, and they supplement their income from late summer into early fall by making Valenki, which they enjoy. The boot itself is literally just made from wool and hot water. Nothing else. No chemicals, bleaches, dyes, no seams, stitches. It's molded around a last, and it's a zero-waste product. The wool itself is regenerative, so it's a waste product of the food industry. It comes from a mix of local small holdings, as well as some of the incredible nomadic herds that still travel to this day across northern Siberia. It's a 2-in-1 boot. A slipper welly, if you will. So worn without the rubber overshoe, and it's a cozy indoor slipper. Worn with the rubber overshoe, and it's a cozy outdoor boot. And it's extremely robust, but when it does eventually reach the end of its days, you can separate the rubber from the wool. The rubber can be easily recycled, and the wool will literally biodegrade in your garden, leaving nothing nasty behind. So that is a Voylok, and this is our story. So we started as a Kickstarter just over a year ago. Our founder, Andrei Petrov, Russian, you may have guessed by the name, saw an opportunity of bringing this old-fashioned traditional boot that he'd grown up with and modernizing it for the Western world. It got the attention of an external investor who saw the opportunity in a really sustainable product and something that was unique and stood out. And so he gave him some extra cash. Andrei rounded out the founding team by hiring Toby Derbyshire, who was the previous co-founder of Heist, and myself. I was previously at PANGAIA. So, interestingly, we didn't actually start off Russian. When Andres did the Kickstarter, being Russian himself, but having spent the majority of his life in the Western world, he was all too familiar with the negativity that surrounded all things Russian. So he positioned it as this Northern European brand. But when Toby and I joined, we revisited the conversation for a few reasons. First of all, if we were going to talk about the heritage of a product and where it was from, it would feel disingenuous to do so without saying where it was from and where it's made. Secondly, a year ago, remember, we didn't know what was coming, but a year ago, we thought maybe this was a point of differentiation. A Russian brand doing something a little bit unexpected, a little bit kooky. I mean, it was an opportunity to stand out. And then lastly, the Russians we knew deserve to have a different story told. So there's this black mark on the world when it comes to Russia. We just think of oligarchs and Bond villains and Putin. But the Russians we knew were nothing like that, and they deserve to have a different side of their story told. So Russian we became. Then we needed to figure out our purpose. And so we knew we wanted to somehow change the perception of Russia, of Russians, but that didn't actually have anything to do with the boot. So we needed to get that one in there as well. So we landed with Voylok is a sustainable footwear brand that exists to bring people closer to nature and to showcase a new side of Russia, creating greater connection to the natural world and each other. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that that is in fact 2 purposes. I believe that's what a Gen Z refers to as a red flag. And not just a Gen Z. In fact, any good branding professional will tell you you shouldn't have 2 purposes. But we were attached. I was attached. And the more people pushed back, the more I got defensive. I wanted to prove them wrong. Yes, we could change the perception of an entire nationality through a kooky woolen boot. I think that is a classic example of mistaking your ego for your intuition. So what did being Russian actually look like in practice? We had content buckets where we introduced Russian words that were relevant at the time. Our entire website was filled with Russian jokes, references, vocabulary. We talked about the craftspeople making our boots constantly. We also shot all of our assets in Russia. And we had dreams of bringing the press there to show them the beautiful natural wilderness, but also introduce them to a few Russians who, weren't what they see in the news. So where did it all start to go wrong? Well, on January 6th, we issued a press release celebrating the launch of a new sustainable Russian footwear brand. By mid-January, things got hotter as Putin started moving his troops into Belarus. We had a meeting and we talked about it, but you have to remember at this time, no one actually thought he was going to invade. Even Zelensky himself accused the West of warmongering. So we thought we could nip it in the bud. So we issued a video. We showcased our workshop. We introduced Alessia, the owner of our workshop. We talked about Andre and his vision for this post-consumerist world. We thought that by being open and honest, we could somehow take the sting out of any negativity that might come our way. We launched on February 15th. It was half-term here in the UK, a touch stormy, if you'll recall. I was down in Devon with my family, and when the conversation at the dinner table turned to work, I was really shocked to see all these drawn, concerned faces staring at me. I was like, no, we're good. Russia's newsworthy. This is relevant. We're going to be fine. Nevertheless, the panic had started to set in. On February 18th, we posted this asset on Instagram. We talked about cosmonauts and Tolstoy and blinis. Surely a country that brought us all these things couldn't be all bad. A week later, on the day of the invasion, we were quick getting a post out condemning it. But again, that was Putin's war and it had nothing to do with us, and surely everyone could see that. On Monday, February 28th, we realized that our dream of having a Russian brand was over. Over the weekend, messages of condolences had flooded in from friends and family, even my mom. The outlook was bleak. 6 months of strategizing, planning, relationship building, connecting, and suddenly we were untouchable. Hundreds of boots sent out to influencers, and no one could or would post about us. All of our press leads, previously quite hot, went very, very, very cold. Now, it's fair to say that absolutely everything we've gone through is nothing in comparison to what Ukrainians have gone through, and that was and continues to be a very healthy reality check. But our own leadership journey got harder when we realized that anything we put out into the public sphere could endanger our suppliers and Andre, who was in Russia at the time with his young family. As Putin rolled out terrifying censorship laws, including 10 to 15 years in jail for simply speaking out against this conflict, we realized that we had to be incredibly careful about what we said as a brand. That weekend, rumors of martial law started spreading, and the reality shifted to, what if our founder was conscripted to fight in a war that not only did he not believe in, would actually pin him against some of his own family who lived in Ukraine? Closer to home, one of our colleagues, Olga, was desperately trying to get her mother out of her family's basement in Ukraine. Wool boots didn't matter anymore. What mattered most was getting our team and our suppliers and their family to safety. Only then, once that was done, could we stop and figure out whether there was a business worth saving as well. So, the first question was whether or not we could find somewhere else to make our boots. So, whilst researching ways out of Russia for him and his family, Andre also managed to find 2 new suppliers, one in Kazakhstan and one in Finland. Now, we have dreams of returning to Alessia and her workshop on the banks of the river Volga and shining some light on this faded corner of the world. But in the meantime, we'll try and do that elsewhere. Ukraine could be a real possibility, as Voylok have been made and worn by Ukrainians for centuries. So, with our supply chain more or less sorted, the next question was whether or not we still had a brand. Now, I believe that the foundation of any great brand is a great purpose, and as you'll recall, we had 2. So we'd become so obsessed with our messaging about Russia that we'd completely neglected the other half. Inspired by the book Obsessed by the incredible Emily Hayward, we reflected on our own values, we took a consumer insight, and then we put them through what Emily refers to as the why test. Now, Emily believes that in order to build a brand that people love from day one, you have to identify more than just the obvious need your brand is answering. The why test is a way of taking the problem your business is solving and making sure it goes deep enough. So for us, it looked like this. Literally, that's my notebook. So the problem we're solving is that our target customer wants to spend more time in nature. For them, the insight is that luxury is unplugging. Now, our boot makes it very easy to get into nature. There are no laces. You don't need socks. They're comfortable, warm, waterproof, versatile. But none of this is stuff that's going to stir your soul. So we had to get deeper and ask why. So why is it a luxury to unplug? Well, because we feel better. And why? Well, we want to be healthy. Why? We want to live a longer life. Why? To have more time with friends and family. Why? To be fulfilled and not distracted. And why? So that when we die, we have this sense of pride of a life well lived. Bam, we were dead, which according to Emily and the Y test meant that there was life in the brand yet. So we took this deeper insight that luxury equals unplugging equals a more fulfilled life, and we layered it against 3 insights that we saw converging in the market at the same time. The first was sustainability 2.0. So there isn't a brand in this room or on the planet that doesn't have a sustainability pledge or platform or cheeky little capsule, but our consumer demands more. They're tired of this mass consumption and they want to move towards rewilding the planet. Next, mental health has gone mainstream. It's no longer that thing that happened to that friend you knew or Britney in 2017 or 2007. It's universal. It's part of wellness. Everybody's talking about it. And lastly, thanks to COVID, wellness has left the gym. Our target customer has realized that they feel infinitely better surfing on a beach break or walking across a wild moor or dipping into a freezing cold river than they ever felt leaving a gym. So, from the deeper, more improved insight to the convergence of these 3 trends, we landed on our new purpose, which is Voylok, a sustainable footwear brand that exists to rewild the planet and its people. And our customer-facing call to action is rewild yourself, together with a campaign that was shot here and not in Russia. So, what lies ahead? We are spending the next few months redoing our entire website, refixing our supply chain, refinancing because we're completely out of money, basically building it all back up from scratch. But what we're also doing is reflecting on our learnings and sharing them where we can. So first and foremost, don't be afraid of changing. And this is different than don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of changing yourself. That could be your brand positioning, your logo, your typeface, your customer audience, your political beliefs. The only thing that's going to get in your way of growth is a fixed mindset. Second, do not mistake your ego for your instinct. If there is even one iota of the decision making that comes from a place of I am going to prove them wrong, red flag. Third, go beyond the obvious. There is scale in niche. Don't be afraid to really be specific about who you're talking to and what actually motivates them. And then fourth, take care of your people. If you ever find yourself in the middle crosshairs of a geopolitical conflict or a global pandemic, stop, breathe, and ask yourself, what does the world really need now? Chances are it's probably not your product. So invest and take care of your team, and everything else will follow. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Are you all right to take some questions?
Oh, sure.
Well, I thought that was an incredible presentation and very brave, and I had no what to expect, and you really didn't disappoint on that. The first question is what made you tell all of that story? Because you could have just started where your new purpose started, and then and told an interesting story. And by the way, can you show the room the shoes? Sorry,
this is the clog, the summer style. Great,
easy to see on the front row. But yeah, so I'm curious. When speaking to a bunch of marketers at a conference, why did you choose to tell such a personal and kind of painful story as a CMO?
Because my therapist told me to? No. Well, I mean, I think it's a good story. Were you not entertained? Yes, thank you. So honestly, we debated, and at one point we were like, wipe Russia. We were never Russian. And then because we're a startup, I moderate all our Facebook comments, and all that lovely little bit of press that we did get in January was all about Russian brand, Russian manufacturing. And it took one Google, literally the first story that came up was in the FT, thank you the FT, but it was all about here's this hot new Russian thing. And so it just felt like we didn't want to spend the next year trying to trick people. And actually, the story was really human. And we do care about Alessia and the workshop, and we do hope we can go back there one day, because it's not their fault. But trying to kind of hide behind that, especially knowing our target audience, like millennials, we don't take that.
So one thing I'm curious to know, because in the original position, you talked about like the Russian people, the non-Bond villains, and all that stuff. So couldn't you have stayed with that? You could have said, yes, there's these weirdos doing this thing over here, but we're about the Russian people, or would people just ignore the second word and focus on the first?
If social media was a world of nuance, then I think we could, but most of you know it is not that. And we tried, even, to be honest, like. We held on for a little bit, and trying to justify, and even personally, I can't justify anything that Russia's doing, and we're not going to be able to do it for a generation. So what is really motivating and energizing is trying to think, could we invest in Ukraine, and can we invest in Kazakhstan and these other places, and find Alessia's and these beautiful workshops in other places, and then eventually one day, when hopefully it's all been corrected, then we can go back.
So have you got any questions from the room?
Did you debate changing the name of the brand at any point?
Yes, very much. We did. It's actually not a specifically Russian word, so I believe I am not a word. I don't know what they're called, the language experts, but I believe its root is Turkish. It means felt in about 6 different languages, and so we thought about it, but honestly, there was just so much we had to change. I was like, can we keep one thing? So perhaps foolishly, we've stuck with Voylok, but yeah, we'll just see what happens.
Any other questions from the room? So, yes,
Oh, I know her.
Firstly, thank you for sharing. We appreciate your vulnerability. Looking forward, I know you had those messages, but what are you most excited for after learning so much from this experience?
I mean, seeing if we've got it even one bit right. I think so. Like, the indicators are there. This wild swimming thing is a really big trend, and you can just have to look at Dry Robe. I mean, it's a weird overcoat that's now a $75 million business. And who would have thought that? But that's thanks to surf and cold water swim. So when I see, even in my social world, more people swimming and more people going to the ocean, I'm like, okay, there's a need for this product, because it really is great for that. Shameless promotion. So I feel like it's needed in the world, and I feel like there's a home for it. And I actually think the positioning now is way stronger. Like, the first positioning wasn't strong enough. And so if anything, it was also good to go through this exercise to pressure test it and make it even better. So I'm excited to get that out too.
I think I've got time for one more question.
Thank you. You were saying, you've had to pivot so much in the last few months. What is your ambition for the rest of the year? You're saying you're trying to find more financing. What does success now look like for the brand?
Staying solvent for the first few months. We've got to get to September. Now is not the time to launch a woolen boot. So the problem with this is it also launched. We were already late to market in February. We should have launched in November, if not September. So we were just getting the back end of the winter season. And so then by the time we kind of got the engine going again by April, May, not many Google searches for woolen boots at this time of the year, despite the clog being really lovely. So we just have to survive to September. And then success is slowly but surely more and more boots getting out there. And personally, I know I can feel happy when I see a pair in the wild. That will be like, yes, I did that. And it's not my mom.
So short answer, short question. bearing in mind what you've told us today, who do you want to meet today? Who do you want to come and speak to you at the speaker stand here?
Anyone with a passion for wild swimming and quirky footwear and woolen boots.
There you have it. Massive round of applause. Fantastic presentation.
Thank you.